right, go ahead.
Recording. All right, Carlos, hit me up.
All right, good night, everybody. My name is Carlos Salazar, and I'm going to be talking about cooperative learning. This is an educational approach. It started in the 1930s, 40s, but its full development was in the 1970s, actually. This approach is based on grouping. Basically, it's grouping people. So one of the techniques that this has is a method called the jigsaw method. In this method, what they do, first we got the teacher that is known as a facilitator, because the teacher is not like the only one that gave all the information and all that. So basically, the role of the facilitator is to assist the students and guide the students during this process. So this method is based on basically you have to group your students based on their grades or abilities so they can have a similar learning. So doing that, they go to small groups and they start, gathering their knowledge to get a whole information. So everybody brings something. Um, Another thing that needs to be in consideration during this process, to have control of the situation, the teacher has to assign every student a task so they know what to do. Basically, this approach, what the main goal, I can say, since I understood from the reading that I did, is that is like this method, this approach. I'm sorry, wants to create like a positive interdependence between the students. So everybody has a role that has to do, and also like they gather the information, they learn together, and everybody participates. So everybody has to say something. Everybody has to bring something, and also basically this is the method that we use for this class. So I think this is the main one that we use because we gather in small groups, then we go to a main meeting and start, sharing our knowledge that we got. Thank you.
Thank you
Hello,
very
my
much,
name
Carlos.
is Susie, and I'm gonna be talking about the participatory approach. So the participatory approach is an approach that in the goal is to help students to understand the social, historical, or cultural force, empower them to take action in their life. Paulo Freire develops a program in which adults are engaged to have delegate about the problem, about their problems, I'm sorry, in their life. So there are some principles and techniques that help a student to have a better understanding of their daily living and learn new vocabulary that can use with the social life. So the participatory approach helps students with their life, even though they use a target language, because by applying this approach, students improve their education. They learn to communicate between them and use the target language to discuss a problem from their daily living. Besides that, they increase their knowledge and vocabulary. There are some principles that help the students to develop this approach, and those are what happened in the classroom should be connected to what is happening outside. Language skills are taught in the service of action for changing when knowledge is getting constructed. That is because that is that became a tool to help a student to find their biases. There are some techniques too in this approach that we can mention. I'm gonna share with you two of them. Um, One of them, the first one is the dialogue, in which the teacher, by asking questions, encourages students to talk. A student respond to those questions and problems related to their experience. And the second one is problem posing, in which the teacher set a problem and suggests a solution, and the student responds coordinated. So now we can say the participatory approach focus to help a student understanding the social, historical, and cultural forces to improve their knowledge. In the target language, a student acquire great knowledge and vocabulary by applying this approach. This became more confident in themselves, and the communication gets better since they will be using this proper vocabulary to express their idea according to the dialect that they have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Susie.
Okay. I'm going to talk about participatory approach. Participatory approach means that a person takes participation, which refers to the action of taking part in projects and activities in class. Also, it is the act of sharing a group with some activities to do. To be more concise, that means it is a process of participation. The students in this method of teaching and learning are able to choose a thing to be discussed in class, and they have the opportunity to talk about real life issues from the students' lives and engage the students in an open-ended process of problem solving. In this way, the teacher is no longer depositing information, but is rather allowing learning to emerge from within the students. In few words, the participatory approach is an approach that intends to help students understand the social, historical, or cultural forces that affect their lives and empower them to take action. It originated in the late 1950s with the work of Paulo Freire. It can be understood that it arose to the contents that comes from issues of concern to the students. The participatory approach is based on growing awareness of the role that education in general and language education specifically have in creating and perpetuating power dynamics in society. The participatory approach intends is that students can be empowered to use the language they are learning in order to solve political problems in their lives, which has some main characteristics such as whole class dialogue, questions reflection on a problem, the solution of the problem, focusing on language from occurs within a focus on context relevance to students' lives, and students are encouraged to evaluate their own learning. The participatory approach has some main principles such as what happens in the classroom is connected to what happens outside. The curriculum is the result of an ongoing context-specific problem-posing process. Education is most effective when it is experience-centered. Education is most effective when it is related to a student's real needs. Some main techniques in the participatory approach are dialoguing, which means that the teacher, through questions, encourages the students to talk. Students respond to the questions and depict problems related to their existing and problem posing, which means that the teacher, through questions, encourages the students to pose a problem. To sum up, the participatory approach is a method that provides opportunities for students to talk about real life issues from the student's life and engages the students in an open-ended process of problem solving. This method has some characteristics such as whole class dialogue, question, reflection on a problem, and the solution of the problem. Some principles to remind are what happens in the classroom is connected to what happens outside, and education is most effective when it is related to a student's real needs. And some main techniques to keep in mind are dialogue and problem posing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Montion, I think you're up.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is Jose Monción Saint-Hilaire, and tonight I'm going to talk about the multiple intelligence. As is known, intelligence is the ability or capacity to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. We learn from experience, we adapt to new situations and understand them by retaining the interpretation in our brains. This theory was developed by the psychologist Howard Gardner. Teachers have always known that students have different strengths, different ways of learning, their different cognitive styles, and they have different capacities in doing certain things. It is important to know that these multiple intelligences humans possess, yet no one have them fully developed. The intelligences are, the first one is the logical mathematical, the second one is visual spatial, the third one is body kinesthetic, the fourth one musical rhythmic, the fifth one is interpersonal, the sixth is interpersonal, the seventh is verbal and linguistic, and the eighth is naturalist. While everyone might possess these eight intelligence, as I said before, they are not fully developed. The teachers create different activities in order to suppose which of these intelligences or how many of them the students possess or have. So, and so I'm going to talk about the first intelligence, that is logical mathematical. In this one, people who are strong in logical or mathematical intelligence are good at reasoning and recognizing letters and logical analyzing problems. These people resolve and think faster than other people. The second intelligence is visual spatial. People who are strong in visual spatial intelligence are good at visualizing things like in the long run. These people have the ability to memorize images, maps, charts, and even reading articles like books, essays, etc. The intelligence number three is the body kinesthetic. Those who have high body kinesthetic intelligence are said to be good at body movement. They have excellent hand-eye coordination. They can perform activities and they have physical response better than other people. The intelligence number four is musical rhythmic. People who have strong musical intelligence are good at thinking in patterns, rhythms, and sounds. The kind of people who develop this intelligence they are good at memorizing notes, accords, melodies, and better than other people. And these people tend to be musicians. But there are some cases that they are not musicians. They do it for hobby, or they are not professionally. But they have developed this not to a fully range, but they are better in doing that. The intelligence number five is interpersonal. Those who develop this intelligence are good at understanding other people's emotions. When they have this capacity, people are good at getting other people's motives, desires, and intentions. The intelligence number six is the opposite of the intelligence number five. This is the intrapersonal. This one is contrary in everything. In this, the person who are aware of their own emotions, motivations, and desires, they tend to enjoy being by themselves. They enjoy self-reflection and analysis of their own brain, their own emotions, their own thinking. The intelligence number seven is the verbal linguistic. This is the ability to use a language effectively. People who are strong in verbal linguistic intelligence are able to use words where in reading and oral expressions, such as essays. These people are good writers. The intelligence number eight and last is a naturalist. This is the new one that the psychologist Garnet has added to his list. Individuals who are fully developing or that are highly developed are more in with natures, and they are more often interested in saving the nature, nurturing, exploring the environment, and learning about new species. To summarize, these intelligence are possessed by all people around the world. They might not have all of them, but none of them have been fully developed. We can also say that there are more intelligences in the world, and for me personally, I think these are not intelligences. They are more like talents of or capacities a person have that is different from other people. But as the author of this intelligence, who develop them into an analysis, can say that for him it is an intelligence. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jose. Most likely, yes, as soon as you stated, it's most likely that teachers, they need to work different ways how to have their students, they see the different ways. Most likely, as you stated, and they have 8 different intelligence as there was studied by Howard Gardner. We can say that since 1983, 93, 99, and 2006, which he has really big influence in the language teaching. As you stated, we have 8, which number 1 is a logical mathematical, which is the ability to use numbers effectively and see abstract pattern and to reason as well. Visual and spatial is ability to orient oneself on the environment to create mental images and sensitivity to shapes, size, and color. Body and kinesthetic is basically to use one of the body to express oneself and solve a problem. It's most likely like the use yourself as like experiments in order to provide the teaching. Musical and rhythm, the ability to recognize tonal patterns and sensitivity to rhythm, pitch, and melody. Some people, they are more adaptable to learn throughout music. That's actually scientifically being proven. Interpersonal is, like you stated, is the way how understands other people's feeling. Intrapersonal is the way how you're self-teaching. As far as we understand in this case, we can practice self-discipline in such a matter. Verbal linguistic is most likely the ability to use the language effectively and creatively. Naturalist, the ability to relate nature and classify what is observed. Now, not everybody is able to adapt all 8. Keeping in mind that this is actually strengths and the ones weaknesses. We cannot say weaknesses, but I would rather to say areas of opportunity. But each and every one of them, there's a certain amount of people or certain type of people or students, we can say in this case, that they are more applicable for that part. Now, as I stated, that while everybody might possess these 8 intelligence, they are not equally developed in one individual. This also that will give you the certain activities to be worked on the 8 intelligence that has been already explained. For example, on the mathematical logical intelligence, we can use the puzzles and games, logical, sequential, presentation, classification, and categorizations. For visual, we can use charts, video, pictures. Body kinesthetic, we can hands-on activity, field trips, pantomime, musical rhythm, singing, playing. We can use music, jazz, chants, interpersonal paperwork, project work, group problem solving, and interpersonal self-evaluation, journal keeping, options for homework. Let's keep in mind that this intelligence creates a self-discipline in order for to learn the language. Verbal linguistic, we can use note-taking, storylines, and debates. A naturalist collects objects from the natural world, learning names and about them. Now, a second way has been developed for this multiple intelligence perspective. So in the deliberately planned lessons so that can different intelligence are represented. From Emanuela Agostini, The data addresses all the intelligence. For example, on step number 1, they give the students a riddle and ask them to resolve in pairs. Number 2, guided images. Guided imagery tell the students to close their eyes and to relax. Then describes the picture and sense of the portrait. Step 3, describe each person in a small group of written description. The same picture has been described. Or step 4, as a groups to create a tableau, the pictures acting out description, and so on and so on. Now, not to make this explanation too short, most likely has Jose pretty much covered in this. And what I just mentioned previously is that all these 8 intelligence that Gardner explained, it cannot be adapted to each and every one of them. So for example, I can say Susie, she is more flexible to learn different things, but visual and listening is not the same thing that Kelvin can learn it for a different way. Kelvin then can usually has this using pantomimes, or Jose Monsioni has a strong self-discipline that he is able to learn it by his own. As a summary, this is not basically the way how we teach. It's just different mentality and psychological aspects of profile that determines how's the best way how we can teach language to each student. They are very flexible, as the human mind can evolve depending on the time and environment and the type of person. We can pretty much know which is the main strengths and areas of opportunities that we can take advantages in order for us to be more productive on the teaching language education. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna be next, Mac Rosario. So now I'm gonna be talking about the learning and strategy training. So as an introduction, I can say that the fundamental task of schools, as you maybe know, is to endue a student with the strategies which enable them to elaborate, transform, contrast, and critically rebuild the knowledge that they get in there. And also they can develop the strategic knowledge. So the learning strategy focuses into help the students to learn the strategies on how to develop the language teaching skills that they have by themselves. So students should be responsible of their own learning, and the teacher only helps them to facilitate their learning as much as the most effective target that they have at the moment. So the students at least should be aware of the use of strategies in to get the goal of this approach. All right. So now a little bit of history. So the learning strategy, as I mentioned before, which is a specific action to make the students better in learning a second language, started in the early 1970s. So language learners were seen to be more actively responsible for their own learning. And in keeping with this perception, in the 1970s, Rubin investigated that good language learners facilitate their learning. So as I remember from this investigation, some of the learning strategies, the techniques of devices which learner may use to acquire knowledge were identified. So I will mention some of them for you, which, for example, techniques that we use for learning is like thinking aloud. So thinking aloud is a research method in which the participants speak any word aloud in their mind. And by this, they practice the repetition, and by the repetition, they can remember words and things by doing a task or to complete a task. So think aloud research method have a sound theoretical basis and provide a valid source of data about participating thinking, especially during language-based activities. So in this one, we ask the participants to voice the words in their mind as they solve a wide variety of problems. So by this, I can say that some of the strategies that we follow also in this one is the cognitive ones. So in the cognitive strategies, we involve or the learners are involved in the interaction and they manipulate what it's gonna be learned. For example, These include replaying a word or phrase mentally to listen it again, or outlining or summarizing something that they have seen in class or what they have already learned or have listened that day. Another one could be using a metacognitive strategy, and this is by manipulating or using a plan to monitor or evaluate a learning task. So we can like take advantage of some or monitoring some mistakes that the students can have and evaluate a task success by repeating some exercises in different ways. So also we have memory related strategies. So in the memory related strategies, with that we have learners to link objects with words, but these basically have various memory related strategies in the same one that enable learners to learn and retrieve information in an orderly stream. So while other techniques create learning and retrieval by sounds, this one makes it by a combination of images and words. Also, we have some others like the compensatory one or the social one. In the compensatory, this is as simple as it sounds. It helps the learner to make up from some missing knowledge by taking some words that they could forget or could miss. And the social one which is used a lot, in this one, we help or the learners are helped to learn how to work with others by making some activities that involve other students or other members. So as much as I say here, the teacher's roles in those strategies in the training language is basically, sorry, I stopped the video. So the roles of them is basically to aim at training his students in using language learning strategies that they should learn. So they need to check their interests, their motivations, and the learning styles in order to see which one they can apply that could be the best for them, because everyone learns different. So the teacher can learn what language learning strategies the students already appear to be using, and by observing their behavior in class, so they can see or they can prepare like questionnaires to that students that they can fill at the beginning so they can know at what pace they can learn and in which things they are good. So in conclusion, for me, the language learning strategies being specific actions or behaviors or tactics or techniques facilitate the learning of the target language by the language learner. So all language learners use language learning strategies in the learning process. And since the factors like age, gender, personality, or motivation, or let's say the self-confidence affect that, affect the way in which language learners learn the target language, it is not reasonable to support the idea that all language learners use the same good language learning strategies or should be trained in using and developing the same strategies as they do learn the same way. So basically everyone learns different, and by learning some strategies on how to apply the knowledge that you have can help you to improve your English. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So pretty much we cover everything. Before we go off, is there any questions, complaints, feedback?
Nope.
We are good? Going once?
Yep.
Yep.
Going twice?